Namaskar friends. Today I would like to talk to you about ultra processed foods and why is it important to eliminate all traces of ultra processed food from your diet. So we are standing in my kitchen and I will be using some examples to delineate between what we term as ultra processed versus unprocessed. Now, first thing, there's something called NOVA classification, which basically divides all food and food-like substances, if you will, because to me, ultra-processed foods are food-like substances divided into four categories. Unprocessed. Unprocessed means the way God, Paramatma, nature made it to begin with. So things like fruits and vegetables. You plucked a fruit from a tree, you uprooted a tuber like sweet potato. All fruits and vegetables, they are unprocessed. Then there is processed ingredients. Processed ingredients include things like spices, salt, oil, sugar. Now, the thing with processed ingredients is it's most of them are considered healthy, but there will be some, such as vegetable oil, which is coming from, say, mustard or cottonseed, canola, safflower. Those are also processed, so those are not very safe. But for the most part, spices, your cumin, coriander, your turmeric, all the spices that you find naturally in your kitchen. I have here ginger powder. These are considered unprocessed. So we will call them processed ingredients. The third thing is processed foods. Now, processed foods, naturally, because we have invented fire, we have the idea of cooking foods, adding different ingredients together to get a better flavor. And for the reason of flavor, we are creating a combination of foods, and that itself is called processed foods. And the last one, which we have to avoid at all costs, which has started creeping its head in this world of industrial revolution, post-industrial revolution and mass production, are ultra-processed foods. Now, ultra-processed foods are foods which are not found in nature. So you are, and you can debate whether GMO is also considered ultra-processed or not, because you are creating hybrids in the lab. But for the most part, processed food is referring to anything that has multiple ingredients on the ingredient list. So if you turn the ingredient list at the back and try to read it out, you will see there is not only the primary ingredient, but also multiple emulsifiers like lecithin, stabilizers like gelatin or guar gum. There will be sodium polysorbate, preservatives, potassium benzoate. You will find things in Patanjali. I saw a lot of, they have neem juice and aloe vera juice, and then there is potassium sorbate, there is potassium benzoate, because they are trying to have some preservatives. So addition of emulsifiers, food stabilizers, foaming agents, anti-foaming agents, gelatin agents, foods are increases the shelf life, increases the flavor, increases the filler effect, so the crunchiness, and those things are what are ultra processed. So the first thing, in order to avoid the enemy, is to identify the enemy. So you have to use some simple tricks to understand what is processed foods. I tried to look in my house if I have some processed food, and all I could find was this protein shake that my brother left when he was visiting me. And clearly I can tell you I don't have any processed food, because I stopped eating like 6 months ago, and I have seen some benefits to it. But let's read here. And this is the most healthy plant-based version of protein powder. I guess the kids use these days to go to the gym. But I'm just reading off the ingredient list. The ingredients are coconut milk, natural vanilla flavors. Now that there is your ding. If there is a flavoring agent, it is, although the word is natural, there is something that is being created in the lab. Soluble vegetable fiber, xanthan gum, guar gum, low hand fruit extract. And that is the problem. You have lot of different words and names that you cannot pronounce. Now, in its defense, they do say that there is no soy, there is no gluten, and there is no preservatives. So that's fine. But to me, you have to have certain criteria to identify ultra processed foods and to avoid them. So I'll give you a few criteria to identify easily what is ultra processed and what you have to avoid. Number one, perishability. And that is said even in Gita. The food that is good will be perishable within hours. Now it could be 3 hours in some cases, or Ayurveda says 6 hours. But beyond that, the food has lost its intrinsic cardinal nutritive value because of natural fermentation, because of acidification, because of yeast overgrowth, because of the chemical reaction in the components. It has lost its intrinsic value. So it is tasting like food but not nutritive anymore. So it is extremely perishable. So think about stuff. What is perishable? If you keep an apple, a pear, a papaya, it will rot if you don't eat it within 2 days on the room temperature. Versus, of course, you can increase its shelf life by keeping it in the refrigerator, but in natural circumstances, it will rot. And the earlier the food, which is rasya, snigdha, sthara, hridaya, which is what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, the definition of food, which is rasya, juicy, snigdha, so it is a little succulent. It will have some slimy properties, but also it will have some very pleasing to the heart properties because it is sthira hridaya, so it pleases your heart. It is sometimes sweet. Sweet is not considered bad if it is coming in natural forms. I'm not talking about sugar. We'll talk about later. So first thing is perishability. The food has to be perishable at room temperature within hours, at most within few days. That is the hallmark of unprocessed food. Exceptions to these are nuts and seeds, grains. You can store them long durations of time. Actually, grains like wheat and rice, the more you store them, the more the nutritive value goes up. Just like ghee. The older the ghee, the better properties it has. But in general, fruits and vegetables are extremely unprocessed and they are extremely healthy and they are perishable. So ultra processed foods are non-perishable. Why is it non-perishable? It is non-perishable because they are produced on an industrial scale. They are produced for maximizing corporate profit. They are produced en masse. So it has to be circulated to all parts of the world. It has to be provided at places where there is no refrigeration or there are extremes of temperature. So that is why to maximize the profitability and shelf life, you have created ultra processed food. So they are non-perishable, and that's not normal in nature. In nature, things that come out of the ground, they have a life and then they will rot and decay and go back in the soil. So that is why ultra processed foods are non-perishable. That's the number one hint. The second hint that is very easily given away is that ultra processed foods most of the times have ingredients that you cannot name or pronounce. You will have a hard time pronouncing their name. Xanthan gum, sodium polystyrosulfate, sodium lauryl sulfate, lecithin, emulsifiers, potassium sorbate, potassium benzoate, guar gum. So these are terms that you don't come across on a day-to-day basis, hard to pronounce, extremely hard to pronounce. And then there's a third one. Third one is that you will not naturally find these ingredients in your kitchen. Here I am in my kitchen. You can find chili powder, you can find mustard seeds, you can find turmeric powder. What are these? These are processed ingredients. From turmeric, you made turmeric powder. From chilies, you made chili powder. Mono ingredient, single ingredient that created that stuff. And now this has shelf life. So that's the tricky part. The unprocessed foods in general, they will not have a shelf life. They are perishable, but the unprocessed ingredients can be stable and they will be found in your kitchen. So those ingredients that are unprocessed ingredients found in your kitchen and have a shelf life, such as spices, they are considered healthy. But there is also some unprocessed ingredients that are unhealthy. So those include mostly refined sugars. Anything that is processed and refined, it will say sugar, but you remember, to form the sugar from the sugar cane, they have added a lot of chemicals. They have added a lot of purification processes. The triple refined mustard oil, it's not just mustard oil anymore. They have added so many chemicals and then they have tried to bleach it and they have to try to remove all those smell, because the natural mustard oil will have a lot of smell, and to remove the smell, to make it more palatable, appealing to the people and improve the shelf life, they will remove all that. So kachi ghani, as you see, there is some mustard oil that I have. Of course, I have stopped even trying to eat too much of mustard oil, but kachi ghani, so this is unrefined, which is the best you can do. The more you process and you refine, the more dangerous it becomes to your life. So watch my video on vegetable oils, why they are dangerous. But anyways, unprocessed ingredients such as spices are safe, and processed ingredients such as sugar, salts, vegetable oils, they are unsafe. But in general, they will be ingredients that cannot be found in your kitchen, and they are difficult to pronounce the names. Those are usually long chemical letters. Those are the second, those are traits of the ultra processed food. Then the third trait, these are foods, because they are mass produced, they have to be mass exported, and they have to be easily carried from one place to another. So they will usually be covered in plastic. So ultra processed foods are usually covered in, they can be covered in paper as well, but most of the times, because it's cheaper and durable, they'll be covered in plastics, so their shelf life increases. Another trick to identify ultra processed food: when you enter the supermarket, everything that is in the center aisle, everything will be ultra processed. Your chips, your cookies, biscuits, your ice cream, beverages, fizzy drinks, all those things are ultra processed. Even your bread. You think bread is healthy? Oatmeal is healthy? Cereals? No. If you are buying it and you're not reading the ingredient list, if it says just oatmeal, it just says oats, then it's fine. But if it adds 10 more things to it, sodium phosphate, potassium sorbate, add some xanthan guargan emulsifier, lecithin, game is over. So you cannot eat that thing. And I will come to it why it is bad, but first identify it. So food that is in the center of the whole foods or any other place is going to be ultra processed. So don't be fooled by terms such as vegan, gluten free, no preservatives. Those things are not going to help us anymore. The number one enemy is going to be, it's not whether you are eating meat. Of course, I'm against eating meat, as you know, because of ethical reasons. But for health reasons also, it's not eating meat. It is the processing in the meat. It is not eating sugarcane. It is the processing of the sugarcane into white refined sugar. It is not eating the coconut. It is the coconut oil and how much processing it has undergone. So those things, processing is the number one enemy, not the vegan or the organic or the genetically modified status. Those things to me are secondary. Number one thing that is going to cause problems is ultra processed food, is the processing of the food, because it's not natural. In nature, evolution wise, we haven't seen processing for all these years. Only the last 100 years, the body has been exposed to a plethora of foods that are food-like substances. They are not foods anymore. They have caloric dense items that we are consuming mindlessly often, because it has shut off the satiety center. So you have the leptin and the ghrelin, those are the satiety center and the hunger center in the brain. They have been shut off because of the way the ultra processed food is interacting with the body, because we haven't seen that in our evolution. So this is all new to us. So my friends, those are the main things about ultra processed. I think a fourth point you can add is that they're extremely cheap. They're extremely omniscient, available everywhere, and they are very palatable, because you have to increase the desire in the individuals. You have to mess up their mind so they eat it aimlessly, eating potato chips while watching cricket matches, for empty the whole potato chip and you never realize. That never happens with an apple or a pear. So my friends, those are the main things, that ultra processed foods are non-perishable. They have a lot of chemicals that are hard to identify or name or pronounce, and there will be multiple ingredients in the same food or food-like substance, the ultra processed food. These are not ingredients that are found in your kitchen. They are usually wrapped in plastic, and they are extremely palatable, appealing, flavored, cheap, and easily available all around you. So to the point where these days unprocessed food is more hard to find. Ultra processed, we are consuming 50 to 60%, kids even more. And now that you have identified ultra processed food, I'll very briefly tell you what are the damage of having ultra processed food. So the biggest problem with ultra processed food, and this is coming from my background as being board certified in obesity medicine and studying the food pattern changes that we have done in our life. The ultra processed food confuses the gut hormones. The ultra processed food confuses the neurochemical signaling that goes from the gut to the brain. The gut and the brain are intrinsically connected. You have the second largest number of neurons in your gut after the brain. So it is very, you can say, emotional. And that's why we use the word gut feeling, because there's a lot of neurons or sensory perception tools in the gut. Now, ultra processed food, because it is food like substances, it's not real food, it's FLS, food like substances. It will mimic the properties of food. The property of food that it mimics is calories, energy density. Sometimes it is more energy dense than others. However, it does not provide you roughage or the fibers. Even if it has a lot of fibers, they are not natural fibers, and hence the way they interact with the gut bacteria is not the same. You want live bacteria. You want food that can feed the live bacteria. That is, you want probiotics, live bacteria, and prebiotics, the unsoluble fibers on which the probiotic lactobacillus and bifidobacterium will feed. So when they interact, the probiotics act on the prebiotics. Then there is beta oxidation of fatty acids, for that matter. There will be formation of SCFA or short chain fatty acids like butyrate, and those are anti-inflammatory. Those are that which keep the immune system at bay. When you eat a lot of processed foods, they do not have the prebiotic probiotic combination to cause this reaction to form the SCFAs or the short chain fatty acids. That's just one pathway, by the way. The lecithin is like a detergent, and it will wash away all your bacteria. It will wash away all the phospholipid barriers, and that is why some people say that ultra processed food leads to leaky gut syndrome, celiac disease, PRU, and all those things. The problem is you are wiping out the natural microbiome that is existing in the gut. So very important to understand that ultra processed food is not only killing the physical barriers, disrupting the barriers in the intestine and colon, it is also killing away all the microbiomes which are essential for gut health, which is essential for your immunity. And that is why the disruption of the immunity leads to autoimmune conditions. That is why you will see a high rise of autoimmune conditions with the consumption of processed foods. I will go on to say the number one thing, you are what you eat. So number one thing, the way you think will also change if you decrease the amount of processed foods. If you are eating a lot of unprocessed foods, then you will have more prana. We have go back and watch my videos on high pranic foods. None of them are processed. All of them are foods that are going to increase longevity because they have a lot of life in them. So things like sweet potatoes, fruits and vegetables, anything that is snigdha, hridaya, sattvic, those things are generally considered high pranic foods. So yeah, that is the distinction of ultra processed foods. When they disrupt the microbiome and trigger the autoimmune conditions, you will have not only autoimmune conditions of the gut, so inflammatory bowel disease, irritable bowel syndrome, where you eat and you have to go to the bathroom or you're constipated all the time. You start developing extra intestinal manifestations, things such as the skin, because all the organs are interconnected in the body. You will start seeing on the skin, you will have psoriasis, dermatitis, eczema, and people are wondering why we are having these conditions. Because of the food you are eating, it's a major ingredient. Similarly, in the brain, there will be increased formation of neurofibrillary tangles, amyloid plaques, because the body is not able to understand what the hell have you brought in my stomach. So it is not able to break it down. Evolution wise, it has never seen this. Maybe if we keep eating for 1 million years, one day we will be able to process plastics. Maybe we will be able to eat all these junk foods and still be able to survive. But in the process, because evolution, human being has not seen this, and there's a rapid influx of this chemically poisonous food like substances, you are damaging the gut microbiome in the process, triggering autoimmune conditions, allergic conditions, and every single organ in the body is affected. In the scalp, you will have seborrheic dermatitis. In the eyes, you will have conjunctivitis. In the nose, you will have rhinitis. In the mouth, you will have dry mouth, chiliosis, canker sores. You will have sore throat. In the lungs, you will have bronchitis, coughing, dry cough spells or even wet cough. You will have worsening of your asthma. In your gut, of course, you will have gastritis, colitis, irritable bowel syndrome, inflammatory bowel disease. In your extremities, you will have always myasthenia like symptoms. You will have muscle weakness. You will have poor coordination, fatigue, unexplained fatigue all the time. And we wonder why it is. The body, when it doesn't understand something, evolution, it has seen feast and famine. So what does that mean? We have periods as hunters and gatherers. We have killed animals. We have grown fruits and vegetables in plantations. So that is the way we have subsisted. But we have had days where we could not hunt anything, and we had periods of droughts where we could not grow any foods. So that's why that's the period of famine. And in the famine, the body will use the adipose tissue, glycogen, whatever stores you have, the body will use it. The same logic the body uses with ultra processed food. It does not understand what is this lecithin, xanthan, guar gum, potassium sorbate. So when it cannot process or break something because it does not have the necessary enzymes and wherewithal to break it, absorb it, digest and assimilate it, it will just store it. And this storage of unexplained chemicals in your body is what, it's kind of a pyramid thing where bioconcentration is happening. Higher and higher concentration of toxic chemicals accumulating in your food vacuoles, because the vacuoles or the fat deposits are what are depositing these things, and the body cannot break it, and never does it get a chance to break it, because it keeps accumulating more and more, because the signals from the gut to the brain are disrupted. You don't have the satiety center or leptin activated. The ghrelin, which is the hunger hormone, keeps getting activated. You never get the satiety feeling. So that is why you have messed up the signals. You have created metabolic syndrome, a lot of tire width in your gut, as well as you have created a plethora of autoimmune conditions affecting every single itis in your body, whether it is colitis, conjunctivitis, rhinitis, bronchitis, dermatitis, you name it. And the whole thing is massively corrupted by the presence of A, refined sugars, B, vegetable oils, C, all these ultra processed foods. And refined sugars and vegetable oils in themselves are ultra processed, like we have discussed. So that is the problem with ultra processed food. So how do we avoid eating ultra processed food? That's the last thing. So very simple. You have to start with common ingredients. I have, for instance, I have this coconut here. You can break the coconut, drink the water. You can use the meat of the coconut to make coconut chutney or other ingredients that you would like to make. You have cauliflower. You cut the cauliflower into small pieces. You throw all the vegetables, beans and other greens, leafy green vegetables that you have, and you cook it together. So you make a soup or a minestrone, like a vegetable soup or sabji. And the idea there, the trick there is you can use processed ingredients. So you can use all the beautiful spices that you have in your kitchen. Here you have all the mustard seeds, turmeric, cinnamon, cumin powder, sweet neem or curry patta. You have methi. So you can use all those powders. No problem with using powders. If you have the ability to crush the seeds and then put it directly, the khada masala, that's totally fine. But if you have just laziness and you're eating these ingredients as powders, totally fine. Because unprocessed ingredients like spices, they can stay for long periods, and their medicinal value, their therapeutic healing properties are not going to diminish. Just like grains. Grains will remain healthy the longer you hoard it. So purana old rice or old wheat, those are fine. Because as a matter of fact, your processing chemicals slowly are going to decompose anyways if you're going to store them for long periods. Now, you have to make sure that you wash the rice, because these days they say the arsenic ingredient component has gone up. So you wash the rice a few times and throw away the water and then cook. Same for the lentils and the dal. I will usually throw away the water, soak it and then cook it. Because as we grow older, the vat is growing up in the body, so body is not able to handle the chemicals the same way. The vat refers to degeneration, and hence your ability to fight the chemicals has gone down. So my friends, all the fruits and vegetables that you love, you can make a salad, you can make a vegetable porridge, and you eat that. You can add all the spices to your taste. If you want something Sweet, you can add jaggery, like a lot of our Guju bhais add a lot of sweet stuff to the foods. That's totally fine. But add jaggery, add mishri. Don't add white refined sugar. That is number one enemy. You cannot have that. That is again causing a lot of inflammation in your body has not learned to acclimate to the white sugar, because that is all new in the last 100 years that we have tortured our bodies with. So you can add that. Now, one thing about a very important ingredient that we cannot live without is oil. So I have talked about oils. You can go and look at the lecture on vegetable oils. Because we have been programmed and trained as kids to eat oil in everything, we are looking for something that is helping to lubricate the food and the sensation, because lipids are very appealing in the body. So what you can do is you replace your processed oils. For sure, don't consume palm oil, safflower, sunflower, canola, cottonseed oil. These you cannot have. The three oils that you can still have in moderation, in order of preference, are coconut oil, avocado oil, and olive oil. Because they have a higher smoke point, they are little saturated oils, and hence their conversion to omega-6. The omega-3 to omega-6 conversion is the problem. Omega-6 is what causes all the inflammation in the body. Omega-3 is the heart healthy oils. So that is the problem. And another thing, never use oil that has been cooked already. Like you cook some samosas, jalebis. I saw as kids we used to see that. They will leave the oil and then they will reheat it and then cook it. That is why you'll see our dadimas would never keep the oil that has been heated. They will throw it away. Because that oil has got carcinogenic properties. Acryaldehydes have formed in the oil. So the aldehydes are carcinogenic, and that's how they trigger all the immune system. Omega-6 and aldehydes both are enemies of your immune system and carcinogenic. So my friends, you have to use oil. Please use coconut oil or avocado oil or olive oil. And use oil to a minimum. Mostly the dressing. When you're done cooking, you just use it as a dressing. However, you can still use animal fat oil, if you would want to call it, but basically you can use ghee and you can use butter. Those are totally fine, because here again they are animal products and hence they can withstand higher temperatures. Are they processed? Of course they are processed. You are not eating directly from the soil, you're using it from the animal. But because we have done it for so long, there's a longer history. Why does Krishna say you can have, why do ISKCON people drink milk all the time? They don't have lactose intolerance. Because evolution wise, the body has been exposed to dairy products for way longer than it has been exposed to processed foods. Hence, lactose intolerance is only a representation of your weakened immune system, with weakened gut health. And that you have self-inflicted by eating all these processed foods and not doing the sattvic Ashtanga Yoga way of life, the pranayam, pratyahara, dhyana, all those things. So your gut has gotten weak. The vat has taken over and the degeneration has kicked in, and you cannot digest any lactose. So that is what is happening. Eating dahi, is it processed? Of course it is processed, but it is naturally processed. Just like spicy ingredients, they are naturally processed. And that is totally fine again, especially if you are eating the chach, which is the water from the dahi, and especially if it is little acidic, because it has a lactic acid or the different acids that are there. They are gut friendly. They are gut friendly because they are probiotics, and hence once they combine with the fibers that you are eating, all the green leafy vegetables, the leeks, the onions, the shallots, those things are going to be acting as prebiotics, so providing the long chain fatty acids for the bacteria to break it, and the breakdown products, the short chain fatty acids, is what we are getting. We are not able to break it down. We are the recipients of them by the billions of bacteria that are living in our gut. So my friends, to sum it up, you have to eat a lot of unprocessed foods. The unprocessed foods can be eaten at home by combining your foods which are naturally available, what are grown on land, and you just pluck it out, whether it's a carrot or a potato or your starchy foods or lipid rich foods like avocado and nuts. But all of them have to be coming from the soil directly, not coming from the countertops in the in the big chains, food marts. So that food has to be combined with spicy ingredients. We are blessed being from the most of us from the Indian community to know all the spices that have been discovered over the years. So we can combine those spices with the fruits, with the vegetables, combine them with various lentils, mostly moong dal. That is the favorite lentil that you should be using most of the time as you're growing older. But also you can combine with the rice, wheat. Make sure it's not processed wheat, by the way. And then you have to use that combination and eat that food. Now again, it should be perishable. So the whole point is that when you cook, you eat. You try not to store it. Of course, majburi hai, you have to store some food and then eat it the next day because there's nobody cooking for you. That I understand. But try not to eat it beyond whatever your limitation is, 12 hours, 24 hours. Ultra processed food, they have been sitting on the shelf for many months. In many cases, their shelf life is longer their own life. So the food has a shelf life longer than my own life. I'm not going to have any benefits. I'm going to die before the food dies. So never eat food which has shelf life longer than their own life. That is the ultra processed foods with all the emulsifiers, stabilizers, food additives, flavoring agents, and they are unnaturally created. And of course, they will create a lot of advertisement for us to consume that and get sick and then go to the doctor and get the medicines and never get better. But the idea is the prevention is better than cure. Always eat these full whole foods, whether they are plant-based, preferable, or animal-based if you're doing a lot of workout. But try to keep it plant-based as much as you can because of the ethical and health reasons that I have mentioned. And at all costs, avoid processed foods, processed meats, processed food-like substances, what we call ultra-processed foods. And then eating this perishable, instantly cooked food quickly will give you the satiety center will get full, and then it will send signal to the brain, stop eating, and over time you will see benefits. Your energy levels will improve, your autoimmune conditions will get better, your bowel movements will become better, you will not have so much constipation which most people suffer from eating ultra processed foods, and overall your health will improve. Hope you like this video. Please feel free to leave your comments before. Jai Shri Ram.